أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I begin, as always, in the name of Allah, whose grace I seek in this and all other matters. This is really going to be kind of different because actually I'm going to go online to vent about one of those derogatory articles that came out, including my name. Now, some of you are familiar, this kind of thing happens all the time, and some people may wonder, well, what do I think about them? And usually I don't respond to them, so people kind of think it just like rolls off my back like water on a duck. But I usually, pay some attention to them. It's just to what extent it is that I'm going to let it sort of rule my life. And I also check myself, because if I'm reacting, then what am I reacting to? So in this particular instance, I was tagged by a friend. So first thing in the morning, I get a link to an article with the title, How the Progressive Left Wants to Change Islam in America. And I must add that it has a subtitle, which is really quite telling, because it says the agenda of the Progressive Left Foundations and nonprofit groups, neither of which I am. I'm neither a foundation or a group. Described herein is to refashion Islam as a secular identity centered on ethnic brownness. Now, what the hell a black woman like me is going to do trying to promote something that has to do with ethnic brownness, I don't know. But you have to understand, I was included in this, so I get to say whatever I want to say with regard to it. And what's interesting is that it's written by a white guy. A white guy whose claim to fame is that he was an extremist. He joined terrorist groups to promote jihadi type of agendas. Now, I've been Muslim for 45 years, and I have never joined any type of extremist group. I've never promoted terror. And yet, the title itself says that we're trying to change Islam. For me personally, I believe you don't have to change Islam, because Islam is like the universe. It's always changing. The skin cells on your body every 6 weeks are new. Everything is changing. The entire universe is constantly in motion. Any of you that saw the eclipse will notice that it moves almost 1,300 miles per hour. So if you're trying to follow it, as one of my friends sort of randomly said, why don't we just follow it? It's moving too fast. So you need to be stationary, and you need to watch as it's moving, remembering, of course, that this is the moon coming in front of the sun, which is 93 billion miles away. So everything may look like it's going slower than it actually is. The point being, everything in the universe is changing, and that I personally believe in Al-Hayy, the God that's living, and therefore it is a requirement that we every day check again where we are located in order to determine whether or not we're keeping up with the universe, okay? So change is not a bad word for me, but apparently it is for this guy, although he wants us to accept that he has changed. That was then and this is now. Now I'm a good little Muslim, and so you should accept me. Not only should you accept me, you should let me browbeat other people and lump all kinds of things in there together as if to say I am giving a critical analysis. So this is the part where it gets really interesting for me, because I really like critical analysis, and that's why it is that I'm taking it up. All right, so in an effort to be inclusive, he says something about Christianity. We're going to leave that because it's just going to take us too far afield, right? And then he started talking about Muslim organizations and claims that some of us are trying to create Muslim, Arab, and South Asian leadership. Again, what am I, an African American descendant of African slaves who actually were also Muslim? My great grandfather on my mother's side was a Muslim that was caught into slavery. How am I supposed to be promoting Arab, South Asian leadership? How's that work? Not that I have anything against it. It's just that that's never been my objective, and it's never going to be my objective just because somebody writes it in an article that Muslim Matters decided that they're going to publish. So then he says that our goal is, of course, to make Islam secular. Now, I've been invested in working on Islamic feminism, first of all, before I could take the title as feminist, until, in fact, we shaped an understanding of what is feminism and what is Islam to allow for me to participate in it. But the first research project that I ever proposed while I was a professor at the International Islamic University in Malaysia was called In Search of Pro-Faith Feminism, because I was interested in working on gender issues, but I wasn't going to relinquish my faith orientation in order to be able to work with what was the dominant white Western model, which was in fact secular. Things have changed. Imagine, I don't have any problem with that, but this guy does, right? Things have changed, and as a consequence, in fact, we have created another articulation of both feminism and of Islam. So the two came together in the form of Islamic feminism, but again, more on that later. All right, so actually I think the focus of this thing is because some of us believe that no matter what your sexual orientation and your gender identity, that you deserve human dignity. In fact, I'm currently involved in a research project, the title of which is Sexual Diversity and Human Dignity in Islamic Classical Sources. Now, the funders of this research never fund individuals. So in this article, he says that they have given me a 3-year grant. Well, the funders not only do not fund individuals, they don't give grants for 3 years. They give a grant for 1 year. So the first year, they gave a grant to Duke University, and I was the primary researcher. And the second year, which happened to be this year, they gave a grant to Starr King School for the ministry, which is part of the Graduate Theological University Union in Berkeley, California, and I am the primary researcher. We still have to make a proposal if we hope to get another year, because that's the way they work. They do not give for more than a year, and they do not fund individuals. So basically what he's saying here is a lie. But what's interesting is he tries to identify me, first of all, as being secular in the sense of being against religion, even though I have a track record for 45 years of the work that I've done as a pro-faith, believing Muslim woman, and the extent to which I have gone in order to be able to articulate the relationship between secular civil society and pro-faith Muslim initiatives, as well as my own location as a person who prioritizes faith and spirituality. Despite all that, he identifies me as a person who was embroiled in a controversy because I have an essay that was written 3-4 years ago in which I call Ibrahim the prophet a deadbeat dad. What's even more interesting is that his only way to reference this supposed controversy in which I was embroiled is that the only link online is from a friend who wrote an essay in defense of it, explaining, first of all, that this was from a blog that I wrote, that is a 1,500-word blog that I wrote in 2013, and then it takes them 4 years to find it, but apparently I'm embroiled in a controversy. So the whole idea is to try to make me seem like a shady person. Now, I would really like to talk to you a little bit more about Abraham the deadbeat dad, but that's got to be another video too. And the reason is because even in the essay that he cites, the person mentions that there's a sentence. It says, what are we going to do about, this, Ibrahim the deadbeat dad, Sarah the bitch, and even this benevolent God. But apparently it's okay to call Sarah a bitch, but you better not call Ibrahim anything. So you have to look sometimes behind what it is that people are trying to claim. And the fact that only 3 words could make it in order to make a controversy, and only an article that was written by somebody in support of both my original essay and my work could be referenced in the link because these guys don't read. And since they don't read, then they will make hyperbole out of a little bit. So I just want you to know that there is a quotation in here about the research that I'm doing, which I've already told you what the name is. And it says a whole bunch of stuff about the ambition of it is to develop commentary on what the most influential Islamic texts say about homosexuality with the aim of disrupting the connection between conservative interpretation and discriminatory practices. Well, again, I have a track record. I don't write essays that respond to conservative interpretations. I do work on the original sources, which everyone is open to interpret. Not only do I do the work on the original sources, I also explicate my methodology. I do have the book Quran and Woman. It is 25 years old, and in it my methodology is very clear, and no one yet has been able to say anything about that methodology. But the fact that the end results is that I do not come to the conclusion that women are sub-citizens, therefore must be subservient to men, means that I do challenge certain conservative locations, but I don't challenge them in and of themselves because I don't think they're that important. The Quran belongs to me, the Hadith belongs to me, the Prophet ﷺ belongs to me. I don't need to go through anyone in order to be able to get permission to engage with them for the sake of my belief. So I want you to think about this when you see that essays are out there, because although there are several sort of like what I call logical inconsistencies that continue to happen in this particular article, the tendency to make it seem as if it's being logical and clear denies the reality that there's a bunch of stuff that's just being randomly thrown in here. I mean, if the title is about groups, I don't belong to groups. I've never belonged to a group that had the word progressive in it. I've never used that word with regard to myself. I'm not backwards, so that may make me progressive. But coincidentally, when the article says it's supposed to do one thing, and then it goes and attacks me, and I don't fit any of those things that it says it was supposed to be addressing, this is another indication that they'll do anything that they want to do in order to badmouth anybody that they want to badmouth. And when they finish badmouthing it, we're supposed to actually shrivel up into a hole and die. So let me just tell you, I am doing research in Islamic primary sources, that is Arabic classical sources, including the Quran, its tafsir, a hadith, its usul, and sirah. And eventually I hope to work on the fiqh, but again, that third year is not yet guaranteed because it hasn't even reached the deadline for it to be proposed. And the title of this research is Sexual Diversity and Human Dignity. It is an ethical investigation in the extent to which articles like this may or may not allow for the human dignity of people whose sexual orientation is not a part of the heterosexual norm. So I am trying to challenge the idea that the lack of human dignity is something that they can ascribe to the primary sources, to the Prophet, to the Quran, but rather the lack of the respect for human dignity, as with this article, is 100% the consequences of people who are seeking ways in order to promote themselves and their ideas at the cost of stepping on, sticking the knife in the back of, or kicking in the behind people that they disagree with. So I think it's appropriate that this is my first video that's more than 10 minutes, but as you can see by how quickly I talked, I'm really pissed off. And as a consequence, I'm no longer going to sit back and just let this kind of stuff happen. I want to tell you I don't agree with this, and I also have given you some of the reasons why I don't agree. Thanks so much. I appreciate your comments and liking and sharing and subscribing. See you next time. Assalamu alaikum.